Welcome back, everyone. This is Jack Smith. Welcome to IT Horror Stories with me, Jack Smith. Today, I want to talk about some cyber things, and I have my very good cyber friend with me, Andrew. Hey, sir. How you doing?
Doing great, thanks. How you doing?
I'm more than fine. Thank you for joining us today. I had a thing I wanted to reach out to you about because lately in the news we've had some ransomware things, some cyber things going on, which got some media, and just wanted to throw my things out there, how I feel, how I see them, and then also get your input. Let's just start. There was a few weeks ago here locally, there was a middle enterprise. They actually made the news that they had to stop their customers because they had what's called a cyber attack in the news, and they had to refuse some customers and send them home. But when I looked at the stuff that was going on, I didn't see any screens with, hey, send us Bitcoin. So when you look at the different types of cyber attacks and ransomwares, I think that's the most infamous is the one where you come in the morning and every screen in your office says, hey, please send us this many Bitcoin to this account, and then we will unlock your things. And then you, of course, have your data breach where they just get into your system and they steal your customer data and then sell it on the black market, on the dark web, or they want some money for it. So yeah, some things I wanted to just get your feelings about this, see what your experience is, the pros, the cons, etc. I guess you're familiar with the thing that made the news a few weeks ago here.
Yeah. I read all about it. Media also has a bit of a tendency to blow things out of proportion. But yes, the company was affected. The company did suffer tremendous loss. We're not even seeing the final fallout yet, I think, for the company themselves. I mean, some don't survive it. I've seen some numbers some years ago that most don't survive a serious breach. Not sure about that, but since it's a high-profile company, they made the news. It's gonna cost them a lot of publicity. It's gonna cost them a lot of confidence, even no matter how they handle it. So this is every CEO's worst case, I suppose, in things regarding cybersecurity. My experience with this sort of breaches is that it's usually something where everyone suddenly panics and wasn't prepared. I think the main thing that it still happens is that it is unprepared. It's also a matter of money. You already mentioned it, but that's the main attack vector, the attack reason for people doing these kinds of ransomware. It's money. Other motives, being it geopolitical, be it competition or other, they're usually not via ransomware. So this is a clear motive that every time pops up. And it's also sort of a motive that means that the way of execution is more like, let's throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. It's not usually that these things happen to a company that was specifically asking for it, or specifically these people had something in mind to target a specific company. That wasn't the case. It's usually that a breach happened, a breach was found, how I'll get into that, and then it was just used to gain money out of it. That's the entire premise. It's not more than that.
Yeah, because the place itself is large enough to be interesting, but not large enough to have a full cybersecurity IT division.
That is the ideal mix. Indeed, that is the ideal mix.
So they're depending on external partners, which can do a good job, let's be honest about that. But then it comes the tech factor. How did the bad guys get in? What did they do? What are the options here? Top of my mind, as you said, they can just throw 5 million emails to the wall and see if somebody clicks on a link. I've also had where remote access from vendors, people that support some machinery, accounting software, that remote access wasn't secured properly, or random deity forbid, they have their own unmanaged VPN in a box somewhere that they didn't update, and then that's your attack vector. So there's a lot of questions going on here, which of course do not take away the issue that happened.
No, indeed. You're quite spot on with the emails sending, I think that is the main attack vector. It's the one I see the most often. Mails are sent towards employees, and stick to the wall principle. You can have 10,000 employees. If one of them clicks, you have it. Usually it's followed up with filling in credentials, which is where the multi-factor authentication comes in, by the way, and then they're in. You can use a lot of tricks like privilege escalation and things like that, but usually it's just they have someone's credentials, they get in, and more often than not, almost everyone has some sort of read and write access to either a shared drive or a network share or a SharePoint folder, and that's enough to encrypt everything there and ask for ransom. It's not really a point of getting to the super user and IT admin credentials. That would be an extra, but it's usually not the main goal or even an intended goal of a ransomware attack. It's just getting to where the data is at and encrypt it, and following that as well. So I've seen the most success with companies that get an external party to train their personnel, where you have to fill in on a website, fill in multiple choice questions, watch 2-minute long videos about how unsafe the environment can be by you clicking on it. And it's a lot of overlooked technology there, because most IT people don't really recommend this sort of training because they're used to it. We're usually from a generation where we grew up with threads on the internet and we know these things, but we're unaware that there are a lot of people out there, employees, that don't know it, and for which them the training is very useful and really adds something. I see a correlation between companies that do that training and tend to get affected less, and those that don't do that training and tend to get affected more. I'm not making any commercial for any specific one, there are plenty out there, but it is a recommendation that seems to be helping a lot. The weakest link usually in the entire thing is the human one, the end user, clicking on things. The second one which you got was the VPN box not updated. I noticed those as well. I've had fewer breaches with those, and I have to point at the vendors here. It's usually that they find a 0 day and it has to be patched all of a sudden. Yes, something can be said for patch cycles in companies which take way too much time sometimes or are inefficient, but it usually starts at yet another 0 day of yet another vendor, and then they get in the news, they are able to get away from the publicity, and then they get on. It's usually the big brands, and it's really sad to see, because even with a well-prepared, well-responsive team, you still have a breach. You just shorten the time for the breach, which is also, of course, valuable.
Yeah, true. And as you said, if the correct wrong person clicks on a link, like somebody in finance, you have all the customers, somebody in HR, you have all the employees. As you said, somebody will have access to not the main application, but there will be a reporting dump somewhere on a SharePoint, which is on a cloud. And if you have those credentials, then off you go. And you can download this from anywhere on the globe.
Yes.
And then work with that. So of course, now people that say, see, cloud isn't good for anyone. I hear you screaming. No need to. You can secure everything. That's a different topic. As said here, this indeed smells more like somebody clicking on something and then giving access to a cloud application or a database somewhere.
Exactly.
And then data mining the hell out of it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that the difference on-premise cloud is that much of an issue. I do think it's more of an issue, the fact that usually there's disorganization in a company. It grew organically. Different teams made different applications, different developments, some external packages were brought in, and it ends up with the data being on multiple places. And then it gets hard to manage. And then you suddenly have 2 or 3 places where your customer files are at. Not the metadata, but the actual customer files. And you just need one of those compromised and systems already go bad. You could say, okay, but I have the 2 other data sets to work with, but usually applications aren't ready to use the other data sets. The external party which attacked you has the data at that moment and the damage is done. A lot more focus should be given to the fact that your data may be all over the place inside your company itself already. Adding to that, with the training as well, coming back to that, I see this is a psychological game. Usually someone who clicked has some amount of influence in the company, being in the team lead, being in the director, and then we tend to approach it wrong. Who did that? That is the question that you should not ask as an IT team lead, because that will end up with people not admitting they clicked because their job depends on it. The question to be asked should be, how did this happen? Did everyone have a training about this? Was everyone aware of this? If you try to start a dialogue in a way that you're not victim blaming and you're not searching for a victim, you're gonna get a lot more useful info out of it. Who did this? How did it happen? And in the end, you can't blame a single person for not knowing these things in a fast-changing IT landscape if they hadn't had the training. But asking directly who did this usually makes the aftermath of it even more difficult because people will not admit they clicked it, which means the IT team will be searching for the breach, not finding it while everything is encrypted and the ransomware demand is there, so it makes things needlessly more complex. Problem is, to counter this efficiently, you need to have IT knowledge, but you need to have some psychological team knowledge, which is usually also a company's weak point.
Don't miss an episode. Subscribe now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and more. Support us by leaving a like or a review. You can always find more at ithorrorstories.eu, and we're just an email away at hello@ithorrorstories.eu.
The danger that everybody just raises their hand and says, not my problem.
Exactly.
And then go for there. And then there's one thing that I would like to add to your list of topics is then, of course, that you have to bring up to yourself. The question that you have to ask yourself in the end is, how do we prevent this in the future? If nobody did anything, then nobody's going to do the same thing again.
No, exactly.
In the future can be weeks or days. Plus, information is out there, so they know all your internal email addresses on the dark web. They have the phone numbers. They might have the standby numbers. Not saying that this is the case here, but depending on which data set they acquired, they found, they conquered, whatever word you want to use, might have that thing, of course, that will not go out into the public media, because then literally all hell will break loose on all different platforms you can imagine. But that will be analyzed, hopefully, because people who know people pay people to check the dark web for them and see what's out there about them.
Yeah. And about a year ago, I would have said that might not be the worst thing, but I changed opinion.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Because, I've by now experienced my first AI-generated phishing calls myself on my personal phone and my work phones. They just know your name, they know where you live, general area, and it's enough. And they can do a real-time AI-generated voice, which mimics someone you know, to ask for money or credentials or helping opening something. And honestly, even as an experienced veteran IT, it's scary. I was able to look through it eventually, but it's the eventually that scared me. It took me about a minute, but 60 seconds is a lot of time.
That's a very long time in a stressful situation.
Exactly, and I'm not proud of admitting that, because that is way too long for my own comfort. But I'm experienced with everything. I read the news, I watch the AI evolution, I know my years of IT, so I can imagine someone at a reception desk being completely oblivious to an AI voice calling in the CEO's voice asking for something. It's a hard one. I think, referencing one of our banks, they did a great thing, by the way. I'm not going to name them.
No, please don't.
But the customers will know it now. If you log into the bank as a customer and you log into the application of them or on the bank website, you see in the upper right corner, you see the little icon that says you are currently calling with someone of the bank, which is either active or not. And that is a genius idea, because if you have someone on the line of the bank which is asking you to log into the bank website, you will immediately see it's not really the bank. The bank itself is not calling with me, or it is.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the first thing, and I hope that technology matures and gets more widespread. It was a nice one to see.
Yeah. I know which feature you're talking about, because when I had calls from that bank, they call from a landline, and you can look that up on the internet. Okay, this is their number, but spoofing a caller ID is peanuts. I asked those people, okay, so thank you for calling me. How do I know that you're from this bank? And they had no answer.
No.
Say, well, yeah, well, you can see my number is from the bank. Yeah, I can change my phone number that I'm calling you from Cape Town, South Africa. That's indeed is a very nice solution. And when it comes to phone numbers, one of my customers had a thing where the CEO was on a roadshow. And being password expiration, he literally actually forgot his password. And he called the central help desk from his private phone number, which nobody in the company knew and also wasn't listed. Yeah, hi, it's the CEO. This is my name. Trust me, it's me. Can you please reset my password? Help desk said no, as they should.
As they should.
I don't know your number. Like, yeah, but this is my number. It's not in the address book. I don't know. You don't know my number. Yeah, it could be. It sounds like you, but not gonna reset your password. In the end, one of the guys that assisted the CEO on the roadshows in Europe said, like, hey, maybe he has his private number. And we went to him. Do you have our CEO's private cell phone number? Oh, yeah, sure, it's here. And they could compare.
Yeah.
Like, okay, it's him. So that's another layer that, okay, this increases trust. And then the tech came on the phone with the so-called CEO and asked some questions that only the CEO would know about past interactions. Hi, sir, it's you. No problem. And the CEO was like very happy. Okay, this is what I expected it to be. This was way too hard than I wanted it to be, and he was very happy. So that is indeed the way to go, and that is with all AI things going on. Although coming back to the thing that we were discussing, I don't think AI was used here. It's very likely a mail thing and data stealing that they were doing.
And on the mail thing, there you can also spoof, of course.
Oh, yes.
But those technologies exist to counter it, and we've seen them maturing. So you can actually now do some anti-spoofing things like DKIM, DMARC. Some newer technologies, including encryption, are already available in standards, but not widely implemented by the mail cloud providers yet.
Yep.
But it's going on. But even those DMARC, DKIMs things, which are around for, I think, 10 years now, probably.
Those have been around for a while, all the DNS TXT records that you're talking about. Yeah.
But they're not widely implemented yet. It's getting better, but a growth of 1% per year is not the speed that I would hope to see for this security matter. No. So if you are listening as an IT guy, the tech is out there.
Same goes with SPF records.
Yeah.
Although those are mostly used for your cloud providers that send email in your name. I think accounting software, HR software, mailing lists.
Yeah, but it does help. It really
absolutely
does help.
It does help. I know when I was setting up our mailing list here for the podcast, which you can totally subscribe to, by the way. We don't spam you. We send 1 or 2 messages a month with new episode info. Check our website, ithorrorstories.eu, to subscribe. So for that mailing list, it didn't work for a long while. And in the end, it was a typo in the SPF record. That it's .eu and not .ue. If anybody is scratching their brain over dyslexia of 2 characters, and that was about 3 days off, but why the hell isn't this working?
It's always a small thing.
It's always the small things, and then you fix it, and then you find out that your DNS TTL is 5 days. So, I think we'll launch the mailing list a week later.
Yeah, that is what happened.
But it happens.
And coming back to your story about the CEO using its private number, it's good that someone was able to verify, but it's not something you want for various reasons. One, of course, it's a bit of a best effort practice.
It is.
And second, it gives awkward situations. To give you an example, at a certain moment, my wife locked herself out of her car. It's one of those new fancy electric car things.
Yes.
So you call the vendor and they start asking these security questions. So, and they ask, what is the battery percentage? Okay, fine, we can answer that about. And then as a second question, what is the name of the car? Now, I happen to know the name of the car because she jokingly told me at the dinner table once a week earlier, but it was the most awkward name to have to go and explain to a guy on a phone we were calling to get into the car again. So
please don't give your car bedroom names.
It wasn't exactly a bedroom name, but in hindsight, I wish it was. So yeah, just these questions only get asked if you are not following normal procedures or something unexpected happens. So you want to be prepared. It gets unexpected.
Yeah, indeed. I wanted to jump ahead because your data is out there. Then, of course, people have your data. They will want money for it. So you basically get a ransomware letter saying, hey, we have your data. Here is a sample proof that we have it. This is what we have. And you owe us this much by this time, or we will send it out. That's basically how it goes. There is one place that I was where this message was missed, and our suppliers, big industrial suppliers of machinery and telecoms and stuff, started calling us. Our dark web monitoring cybersecurity company says that there's stuff of you going around. What's going on? And our cybersecurity guy said, well, we have no idea why. Yeah. And when your customers and your suppliers are coming to you that you have a data breach,
that's pretty bad.
That basically says that you do not have your cybersecurity thing together. And this was not a small company. This was a multinational that really dropped the ball there. Once that's out, what do? I would imagine that you don't blindly transfer this many Bitcoin to that random Bitcoin wallet and then hope it goes away. Basically, it's a hostage negotiation where you start.
Yeah, and the trust is at the other party, not at your side.
Absolutely.
As far as I'm concerned, the moment you are breached, it's mostly over. Because you just have to trust that if you pay the other party, that everything is going to go according to plan. Now, there is a reasonable chance that it will go according to plan, unfortunately. Because if it would never go according to plan once you pay out, then companies in general would stop paying out in case of a ransomware attack. So there is a reasonable good chance, unfortunately, that if you pay, that you will not have the data leaked public. But it's not a 100% guarantee.
This podcast features Jack Smith and guests. We say thank you to our demo scene friends who helped making this podcast possible. Commander Homer for editing, Danko for music and audio advice, NetPoet for additional voiceovers.
One, and two, there is still a copy out there of your data.
I was gonna say somewhere out there is still an S3 bucket.
Yeah,
that has your stuff on it.
I cannot imagine if you're malicious enough to go and do ransomware on people and they pay that you would not keep a copy. I would probably keep my word of not leaking it out, but I would keep a copy.
Imagine that you would be in that business, you'd keep a copy.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'd have my proper backups working. I'm rather sure that the people who are doing the ransomware things are having better backups than the companies they attack.
They know how to handle the data that makes them their money.
Exactly.
The more you think of it, it is a fascinating business model.
Yeah, fascinating business model indeed. It's somewhat comparable to, entering ships at sea, so to speak. Yeah. It's a fascinating business model. It's lucrative, it has risks, but it'll get you a living.
Pretty sure that some of those, let's just say, companies, they have investors and they have a public front with VAT numbers and they're a software company when it comes onto the table. And then knowing some folks who are in the data lake analysis business, that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're getting heaps of data and filtering something out and then take it from there and then see if there's any fish biting.
Yeah, as I said before, it's not a high level of sophistication going on there. It's really just see what bites.
Yeah.
I don't think there is months of preparation for a single target, not even weeks, maybe not even days.
Nah, this is just very likely just opportunistic.
Yeah, just going at it.
This email stuck to the wall.
Yeah.
And we are going with it.
And that makes that there is an advantage for one who has to defend against it, because it's not going to be sophisticated, which means your basic counterattacks, your basic defenses should work. Train your personnel, patch everything, don't open ports to the internet. The usual stuff will get you very far. If you're, for any reason, targeted specifically in another kind of attack, well, that's much, much worse.
Having done some merger and acquisition projects, that's what you see. When we went in, the first thing that we had to fix was the cybersecurity. Patch the emails, patch the systems, get a password policy in place, because companies that would be acquired were usually smaller than the big one that we were working for back then. Yeah. And a press release would go out saying company A is acquired by company B. And 5 seconds later, company A would be getting emails from wink wink help desk to reset their password for their on Microsoft accounts.
That's indeed an expected thing to happen. I also usually, when such an acquisition was done, I made sure I was on site, or I sent someone on site. And the first physical thing to do is get the post-its with the passwords from the computer screens. You've never been there, you don't know it, just do it. Trust me, you'll find them.
We would have a password scan. We would get them an Intune client. They used Intune client on there. Even when those acquired companies were not yet on our network, we would connect them to the big company's cloud, that we could see, okay, everything is patched, everything is in order. And even then, even for 40 user workstations and 3 servers, it would take months until their local IT partner managed to just get everything up to the latest patch level.
Yeah.
And that is then just the patch level, which is, if they have a firewall, pretty secure. But then you have open mailboxes, they would get all the passwords reset emails. And those folks, because this was all under heavy NDA with lawyers, quite often even the employees from the company that was being bought didn't know that they were being bought until the same morning. And they had no idea what happened to them when they start being bombarded by 5 different help desks from the big company that so-called acquired them. And really, really bad things happened there, including entire warehouses with screens asking for bitcoins.
Yeah, the acquisition moment is a hard one in general, and it seems to be an opportunistic weak point for ransomware attacks.
Absolutely, and never had any big issues, but it is a very severe weak point. And specifically when you're doing the acquisition with lawyers and not with technical people, we IT guys are the first one that they see from big new megacorp.
Yeah.
Hi, we're here. We know that you have been promised that nothing would change, but we're IT and we're going to change everything.
And that, again, in the psychological field, is a very bad opening. But it's a practical one.
Bad opening.
Yeah.
To finish up, imagine everything goes well. You came to an agreement with the people that have your data. Everything is unlocked. Nothing was spread or it was contained. I'm leaving all of this in the middle. Everything is over, but then what? Because that's when the actual work starts.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
We haven't even covered the GDPR, the fact that you have to inform people.
No, that's an entire podcast series on its own.
Yeah,
the GDPR things.
Let's not go there today. Then what? Well, you clean up.
Yeah.
First thing, you train your personnel. Assuming a link was clicked, you train your personnel.
Yes.
So that is, again, extra costs after you bought the bitcoins. Then you patch up everything, you consolidate your data. Actually, in practice, you just go on as you were doing before. In a way, it's just an insurance gone wrong. You didn't take any insurance. And your insurance being training your personnel, keeping everything up to date, investing in that. That costs money, yes, but that is insurance money for yourself.
Indeed.
And if you didn't take it, well, you'll be paying the full price. If you don't pay insurance for a car, you don't maintain it, and then something goes wrong, you pay the full price for the car repairs.
And then
same thing.
The infrastructure person in me says, and while you're at it, check your remote access, any cloud application you're using, contact the vendor, change all the passwords. Yeah, I know it's easier when your accounting cloud application uses the same password as your desktop, but you shouldn't.
No, you shouldn't. Well,
this is then one of the results of that hopefully they learn. And I have to say, I have seen very few repeat breaches.
Yeah, I can say the same. Companies that experienced it and survived do learn. Costly, but they learn. Regarding the password policies you mentioned, I'm mainly talking about admin accounts. Because I do believe in a user single sign-on experience, but admin-wise, getting everything down.
Well, also, you can do single sign-on, but do an MFA on your phone with an app, or have an SMS, or have a voice robot call you with some numbers and you type them in.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen articles saying MFA is not secure, MFA can be breached, and to a certain degree, that's true. But again, we're talking about a not sophisticated attack.
Yeah, this is, if you're throwing things at the wall, MFA is fine.
Yeah.
If you are talking about global politics and or really direct espionage, but that's a completely different ballgame than what we're talking about here.
Indeed. So the MFA will do. The authenticator apps are perfect for this. They do help. And even the whitelisting of your on-premise IP addresses for not needing them, I would still consider that safe enough at this point.
Fair enough.
Although it's spoofable, again, it would be a lot of extra work. It would slow down the operation of trying to catch as many ransomware targets as possible. So just looking at the ransomware, MFA your accounts, single sign-on is okay, complex passwords. I'm not sure if I would suggest rotating them every 90 days or so. It's mainly have a complex password and don't click anything. And again, to the psychological stuff, I've also noticed once you're more reachable as an IT, more approachable, people do tend to approach you more with questions. Is this link clickable or not? So I had quite a successful story with working for a company that was very closely integrated with governments, and they didn't have that many people. And I just made sure that I was approachable in the hallways. They knew my face. They knew my colleague's face. It was a small team where the IT guys, if anything goes wrong, just ask. If anything is out of the ordinary, just ask. We won't judge. It does happen, and it did help. People would ask us, is this a legit mail or not? And we would be able to verify it. And it's better to spend maybe an hour extra a week verifying emails as part of my tasks than to actually have someone misclick that.
Because then you will have to spend a lot more time than 1 hour with everything fixed.
Yeah, then it's just staying up late, dreaming of a shower while you still have to clean everything up folder by folder. Just...
Yeah, no shower for you.
No, that's much worse.
In conclusion, most things can be seen as see if it sticks.
Yeah.
If it's really targeted, we're talking about completely different things than what we're talking about now. And train your people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I think that sums it up then.
Yes.
Okay, good. Andrew, thanks a lot for your input, your opinion, and your magnificent knowledge on this.
Thanks.
All right. That's it for this episode. Thanks you for tuning in. I am Jack Smith. For our podcast, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Deezer, and wherever you find your podcasts. At least one episode per month. We have merchandise. Check out our merch at shop.ithorrorstories.eu or support us via Ko-fi. If you're not in the EU for the shop, you can change your region at the bottom of the page and click US or Australia for local shipping. Our social media can be found on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, and Mastodon. All links, etc. are on our website, ithorrorstories.eu. Again, thanks for tuning in. Andrew, thanks for joining.
Yeah.
And we will hear each other the next time.
The content of this podcast is intended for entertainment purposes only and is meant to humorously explore various tech-related situations. Any resemblance to actual events or real persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental. We ridicule situations, never individuals or groups. Listener discretion is advised, and we encourage everyone to approach technology with a sense of humor and an open mind.